Here we go.
Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well on this. It's Christmas Eve. It's Christmas Eve. Santa's coming tonight. Santa's coming if you're on the good list. If not, then it could be Krampus. Which list are you on? Let me know down below. Anyway, we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes. As I did a video yesterday, right? And it was talking about Plunder, who lives in a pineapple under the sea, and on all that. And it... Look, like I said, some people believe Brian Kohberger to be innocent. Some people believe him to be guilty. And I don't have a problem with differing opinions. I say this countless times. I have people around the channel, moderators around the channel, who actually believe that Brian Kohberger is guilty. But what I have an issue with is the reason why some people believe that Brian Kohberger's guilty. And there seems to be a huge amount of people who don't seem to quite understand why there's people out there who perhaps aren't willing to not give Brian Kohberger the benefit of the doubt. I had a message, and it was basically saying, because I believe that Kohberger has not been proven of this crime, that I'm unintelligent. Literally said that I'm unintelligent. I've been called many, many things in my life, but unintelligent for giving someone the benefit of the doubt pre-trial, when I personally do not believe that there has been enough evidence shown in the public area to convince me otherwise. Does that make me unintelligent? Again, let me know down below in the comments. You're looking absolutely amazing, by the way. It's that Christmas glow. Have you got any mistletoe by you? What are you doing with it? Anyway, I want to go through this this comment, because this comment, and even though this isn't a dig at this individual, Linda is a subscriber on the channel, but what this is to show a problem. This is to show a problem, and a huge problem that exists around this case, right? So this is Linda. I pinned it just so I could track it. I didn't lose it. So it says, I subscribe. So like I say, Linda is a subscriber. And this isn't about calling Linda out as an individual. This is about showing the damage that has been done to this case via mainstream media and the effect that it's had on people. So when you look at Dr. Edelman's survey, for instance, it shows you how valid it is. It shows you how valid the change of venue was. And yeah, so let's just have a look, and let's just really take into consideration that Linda isn't alone here. This is what the vast majority of what we'll say the guilters believe, and what they use to solidify that belief in Brian Kohberger's guilt. Merry Christmas. BK is 6 foot tall and weighed 180 pounds when I looked. Now, this is with relevance to what Plunder was trying to say with respect of the crime that she was talking about. And look, Plunder could have just marketed that marketed it differently to actually raise a concern that when you consider the similarities between the two crimes, could it be that who was involved in that crime could have in fact been involved in this crime? Or do you know what I mean? Not the fact that Brian Kohberger had anything to do with that crime. That's how it was marketed. It was marketed in a manner to suggest that Brian Kohberger was connected to that crime, and he wasn't. He didn't do that crime. But anyway, look, I believe BK is guilty. If you look at his past behaviour, going back to his high school time, when he was shooting, you can see it on the screen, the H, regularly, he begins to look pretty sketchy. So let's just look back over this. Now, when you say if you look back over his past behaviour, going back to his high school time, the only thing you can reference here is the things that have been put out by media. And media have been heavily biased against Brian Kohberger in terms of they believe he's guilty, so they're just going to release primarily things that make you believe that he's guilty. Now, yes, he did have issues, it would appear. He had issues with narcotics as he was getting older. There's been a few different accounts that have come out. But that's not alien. That's many people have suffered that when they're younger, and they come out the other side. Do you know what I mean? And there's many people who have been involved in that world and have not turned out to be killers. So this is almost like suggesting, well, because he did that, he must have done this. And that is a very, very dangerous path to walk, to say because when he was younger at school age and just coming out of school that he was doing these things, this solidifies the fact that, oh, he went on to do this crime, because that's ludicrous to say that. And then we get into this. He stole his sister's phone worth $400 and sold it for $200 so he could buy what he needed to buy. His father turned him in. BK did what the court demanded as probation, and after a year his record was expunged. So don't say he was never convicted of a crime. So let's just look at this. He stole his sister's phone. Right, so let's put this out there. I believe that there is many, many situations where siblings will steal off each other. They will steal off each other. In my opinion, the fact that Brian Kohberger chose to steal off his sister, his sibling, proved that he didn't really have the bollocks to go out and do anything more hard. He didn't think that there would be, how can I say, major repercussions if he was caught, because it was just his sister's phone. I'm going to take this. He didn't go round someone's house and burgle someone's house. So how does that factor into the crime later on down the line? In fact, you could turn around and say that Brian Kohberger, from historic references, would suggest that he doesn't really have the bollocks to take massive risks. Where possible, he'll stick to the easier route and steal off his family. And it also factors in the fact that his father called him out on it, and Brian Kohberger subsequently did what he needed to do in order to get his record expunged. And furthermore, from what we can see, he then turned his life around. Actually being stated by one of his academic advisors, his tutors, that he was one of the best that she had taught, and put him forward to this doctorate. He was working towards his criminology degree, and he there was big things ahead of him, and he'd done that off the back end of stealing a phone off his sister. If you've got a brother or sister, I would love to hear whether you had ever stolen anything from them, taken anything from them. If you as a child and you ever stole from your parents, did you ever go into your parents' wallet and steal some money perhaps? Brian Kohberger got caught stealing his sister's phone, was called up and sent in by his father, and subsequently turned his life round and went into criminology, leaving that life behind him. That's what I see. But anyway, let's carry on. Then have a look at his online writings in his visual snow period. How do we know that the visual snow writings are anything to do with Brian Kohberger? Is that because you've been told by mainstream media that these posts are indeed Brian Kohberger, when in fact there have been suggestions and connections brought up by other people that would suggest that this had nothing to do with Brian Kohberger? Nothing to do with him whatsoever. But because mainstream media stated that these writings were indeed 100% Brian Kohberger, well, they have to be, surely. Here he refers to himself as an organic sack of meat and claims that he feels completely devoid of emotion and empathy for others, including his parents. Again, please show me in the court documentation where these writings have been proven undeniably to be of Brian Kohberger's hand. Or are you just taking media's word for it? He says he feels no remorse for anything he's ever done. I dare say he sounds and behaves like a psychopath. Again, what you mean is these writings make him seem like a psychopath, but we don't know whether they have anything to do with Brian Kohberger whatsoever. His behavioural troubles as a TA in WSU and his failure to comply with his supervisor's plan to remedy his shortcomings are well documented. Though protected by privacy laws, their content was leaked and he was terminated at semester's end. What proof do we have that he was terminated at semester's end? On the contrary, we have evidence to suggest that he absolutely didn't lose his job. He still had his keys to his office when they were searching. He was changing the plates on his car to retain his vehicle from a legal perspective in Washington. Why do that if he'd lost his academic career and was looking to leave the area and go back to Pennsylvania? There'd have been no need to even sort his plates out. He was sorting his plates out to move in line with the legality of being in Washington and the state requiring that he had a plate on his car. But people have twisted that to look some other way, haven't they? So, again, I would challenge anybody to say, where does it suggest, from a court document perspective and not a media perspective, where does it say that he lost his job? Where does it say that any of this is actually accurate? And there are laws that protect against that sort of thing being leaked. And someone would have lost their job. There would have been a cataclysmic sequence of events that happened off the back end of that if indeed the University of Idaho had leaked this information publicly. There would have been an inquiry into who leaked it. Why was it leaked? What happened to these people? Maybe that happened and I didn't see it. Again, let me know down below. The allegations focused on BK's misogynistic behaviour towards female students and teachers. Again, where is the proof that this existed, this misogynistic behaviour, when on the contrary, it would suggest that Brian Kohberger had relationships with multiple females who actually sought his help and assistance at their time of need. He had helped another one not die, for instance. There is multiple pictures that have been shown of BK having decent relationships around female. His legal team consists of predominantly females, and you are seeing literally every time he goes into a courtroom his action and reactions around Ann Taylor. Does he look misogynistic? Does he look like he's got a problem? We saw his interactions with a female police officer, and he was everything in terms of respectful of her position. Yes, he questioned things, but he questioned things because he wanted to understand. He wanted to understand why he was being put, what he had done wrong. But he was calm, cool, collected. He wasn't rude. He was absolutely fine. Other people read into that slightly different. But the complaints or the suggested complaints was that he was a harsh marker. He expected high levels of performance from those students he was marking, and that pissed people off. And that's no different than my own children who come home and complain about the teachers that they interact with. It's never the teachers that give them an easy ride that they complain about. It's the ones that make them do more work, that don't let them talk in class, that say that's not good enough, you need to write more, what is that, you can do better. People complain about those people. That's fucking normal. That's normal. But again, let's carry on. These claims pissed off BK royally. This is speculation. You're suggesting that you know that Brian Kohberger was pissed off by something that you can't even prove happened. It's something that was suggested happened by media, but you're saying that this actually pissed BK off. How do you know what pissed BK off? How do you know that these are accurate statements being made? And this is what I mean by people can have an opinion. You can think he's innocent or think he's guilty, but don't base the fact that you believe that he's guilty off stuff that hasn't even been proven to be accurate. Come on, we can do better than this, surely. You'd be willing to execute this guy because you think that he's misogynistic and he got pissed off because of something that you don't even know happened. You haven't been shown the proof of it. Just an excerpt from a hit piece by mainstream media. Come on. Anyway, let's carry on. Royally, and we are in play in the days before the student murders. He was enraged and knew he was likely going to be sacked. Well, in 1 second, you've said that he was sacked. He was terminated. Then here it said he knew he was likely to be sacked. So what was going on? That would entail the loss of his academic career and humiliation in his own eyes. Non-guilters seem to want to disregard all the video and phone data implicating BK. What is all the video and phone data? We don't even have the completed phone data. The phone data is literally missing a large proportion of data that would be required in order to complete what they're telling you. They're telling you that we believe that he could have took this route, but there's no evidence of that. There's no video evidence of it. There's different evidence in terms of seeing different cars, but one of the cars would be suggested to not even be Brian Kohberger's. The FBI specialist has that car as not Brian Kohberger's, and there just happens to be a white Hyundai Elantra in the area that lives in the area. But Brian Kohberger's car is not a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra, as stated that the car shown in the original footage was. So on the contrary, it would suggest that FBI can't place Brian Kohberger at this property. They can't even conclude that the DNA results prove Brian Kohberger to be the perpetrator. Again, on the contrary, if you pay close enough attention. But people are blinded by this. And this gets worse. So, let's have a look. He seems pissed off. He was enraged. Humiliation. Non-guilters. We're disregarding all the video and phone data. What video and phone data? There is what? Again, as aforementioned, a car that the FBI say isn't Brian Kohberger's, and phone data that implicates him, yes, but you've had a specialist come forward in Syray and say you can't say this, not without this data being included into the mix. Now, you could add that, and that could absolutely support what your beliefs are, but until you get it, that data, when added, could in fact be exculpatory. But you, guilters, ignore the fact that that data is incomplete. Right, so let's go on to the next bit, which is too extensive to detail here. Well, it's not. It just doesn't exist. The video, you're now going to start going on about video that, again, has been pushed out by what? Other content creators? I don't understand. Too extensive to detail here, but I will supply it if requested. I've seen everything. I don't need for you to give me video and phone data that proves Brian Kohberger's guilt, because it doesn't, at this point in time, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You've got incomplete phone data, and we've got information surrounding the car that is, again, this is incomplete. It's incomplete. Add to this his inability to provide a corroborated alibi, which is the problem here, that he cannot, which is likely why he's got himself in this position in the first place, because he doesn't have one. But this person goes on to say, stargazing on an overcast night in crappy weather, I don't think so. Are you fucking joking? Again, just reading this line is indicative of this as someone who isn't following this case. They're not following the case from a court document perspective. They're following this case from a media-driven perspective, and the media is biased. Brian Kohberger and his team at no point uses stargazing as an alibi. What Brian Kohberger's team had stated all the way from the beginning was that Brian Kohberger was driving around. He was driving around. He wasn't in the area on the night of the crime at the time that the crime is being suggested to have been done. That was always the stance, that he was driving around and he was in a different area. What they then brought forward was the fact that Brian Kohberger would frequent these areas such as Wawawi Park, because he would do things such as running, jogging, hiking, stargazing, which was to form a picture that Brian Kohberger, this wasn't alien for him to be driving about, being on his own, going to the park and walking around, because he did things. He was someone who would like to spend time on his own, running, hiking, stargazing. On this particular night, at no point did they come forward and say, Brian Kohberger didn't do this crime because on this particular night, he was stargazing. So again, we've got a situation where this individual believes that Brian Kohberger is guilty, but then they give you a massive, massive script about why, and none of it is accurate. None of it is accurate. It is literally nothing but speculation built off the back end of a biased, media's driven narrative. And there are some huge problems in this, because Linda's not the only person. And again, this isn't an attack on Linda. This is an attack on the companies, the system that does this. And it does it incredibly effectively. And this is why you have people who are wrongfully convicted and then depend upon the innocent projects to try and get them out, which sometimes takes decades, which we've covered and we've talked about. Brian Kohberger could have done this crime, but has Brian Kohberger been proven beyond a reasonable doubt to have been involved in this crime at all? Has he been proven beyond a reasonable doubt in things that we've been shown as a public to have even been at this property on the night this happened, to have done this crime? Just because, say, even if you want to turn around and say that the knife sheath was there and it had his DNA on it, that doesn't suggest or prove that he did the crime. Absolutely doesn't. You could suggest that it suggests that he was there, he was something to do with something, but it doesn't prove that he did the crime. So where's the proof that he actually did the crime? Where's the proof that Brian Kohberger actually pulled the trigger? We are not trying to convict and kill this guy for breaking in. We're trying to convict and kill this guy for murdering 4 individuals. And I challenge, again, anybody to tell me down below, what is your proof that means that Brian Kohberger should be executed? And please don't do this, because all this does is prove that you don't pay attention. And it's sad, because I know people care, and I know people want justice, but you're using the wrong references to argue your point and make a valid argument. And it needs to stop. If you really truly are invested in this case, then stop getting your information from Dateline, News Nation, and companies like that, because they're doing you a disservice, because you clearly don't know what's going on in this case. Love you all. Have a fantastic Christmas Eve, and I will catch you a little bit later on in video 2. Love you all. Mwah.